Hi, thanks for joining us today. We're talking about managing stress, especially during a pandemic. My name is Leah Zamborski. I'm with Ascension, Wisconsin EAP, and I am joined by my colleague, Erin Johnson.
Hi.
So just to summarize what we're talking about today, stress, anxiety, fatigue. Oh my, we probably all felt that at one point or another during this pandemic. The reality is that human beings are extremely resilient and can endure hardships for long periods of time. And you've probably found that that's been true during this pandemic as well. But there are strategies that can increase your endurance and improve your ability to thrive in light of and despite your circumstances. So our objectives today, we're going to learn about your fight or flight system and strategies to stay regulated. We're going to consider the importance of self-awareness and discuss practices to enhance this skill. We're going to explore your unique tendencies and traits and leverage these to help yourself manage stress. So getting into some of that personality stuff, which is my favorite thing to talk about. And we're going to contemplate the silver linings that come with adversity and discuss your unique purpose, because we know that there's always purpose for the pain. It makes us stronger. It makes us smarter. It does something good in us. We would never wish trauma or tragedy on anyone. Of course we wouldn't, but it's helpful to look for those silver linings and see how they've changed us, help us grow. And we're going to end with that today.
Excellent. In the next hour, we're going to share a lot of ideas and strategies with you. It might be helpful to have a pen and paper ready to jot some notes, either something that you're familiar with and want to remember, or some of the different strategies we'll share that you might want to try. We're going to start off by talking about self-awareness, what it is, why it's important, and how it can help us thrive during stressful times. So self-awareness is really that just conscious awareness of how we're doing. And it's incredibly important. Without an awareness of how your body is functioning, what you are thinking and how you are feeling, and ultimately how you're doing, you're powerless to change anything. So think about every time you go to the doctor, and it's standard for them to take your biometrics at the start of that appointment. They check your height, your weight, your pulse, your blood pressure, get a baseline of that useful information. It's difficult for the doctor to make treatment decisions without that basic information. So the same is true for our mental health and wellness. It's important that we check in with ourselves so we know what our baseline is, so we can decide over time if we are doing better or if we're doing worse, and if we need to make some changes to get to a better spot. One formal way to do this, to be more self-aware, is by using what we call the ProQual, which stands for the Professional Quality of Life Scale. This is a widely used measure of positive and negative aspects of helping in the world. It's geared more towards people who work in helping professions, but that doesn't exclude anyone from experiencing the different things that are measured in the ProQual. So this is a great resource for anyone who would like to check in with themselves and become more self-aware. It's a proven, valid measure of compassion satisfaction, compassion fatigue, burnout, and secondary traumatic stress. This is a free resource to anybody who visits the website that's up on the screen. Otherwise, you can also Google Professional Quality of Life Scale, and you'll get to that website. Once you're there, you'll find that this assessment is available in English, Spanish, and a variety of other languages. It's easy to access, and you can do this as often as you want. Some people will take the ProQual every 3 months or 6 months and compare their results. It's a really nice way to check in with yourself and become more self-aware. But if the ProQual is too structured of a tool, or if you prefer something that you can do more quickly or on a more regular basis, you can try any of these self-check strategies. The first one in that purple box is called HALT, and it's simply stopping in the moment and thinking, am I hungry, angry, lonely, or tired? What do I need right now? Maybe I need a nap or a snack, or maybe I need to talk with someone. And then once you've identified what you need, go ahead and do that. The second strategy there is called high and low, and this one can be a really nice reflection on your day at the end of the day. But it's really taking a moment to think about what's the worst thing that happened to me today and what is the best thing that happened. It's really easy for us to focus on what's gone wrong in our day, but it's helpful to recognize all the things that have gone right or gone well in the course of the day. So high-low is another great self-check strategy. The third one, rank feelings. And this is simply thinking, how am I feeling on a scale from 0 to 10 right now? Okay. 0 is that you're not feeling very good, you feel pretty bad. 10 is that you're feeling great. So take a moment, rank your feelings. And then once you've found your rank, think about what you need to do to go up by 1 point. Usually these tend to be simple, small things that we can do, like taking a break from work, eating a good meal, or maybe getting outside for a little bit of fresh air, and then do that. And the fourth strategy up there, how do I feel? Many people don't consider their feelings throughout the day. We just get in a rut of task after task after task. So this one involves just taking a few moments to reflect on your emotions right now. You can become more self-aware by trying to identify 2 to 3 different words to describe how you're feeling. And we would challenge you to try and think bigger than those basic 4 emotions that we learned when we were young. So think big, think outside of mad, glad, sad, and scared, and really try to identify those emotions or feelings behind those. So maybe you're feeling irritated about something, or you're lonely, or you're embarrassed, or you're feeling really hopeful and excited about something. When we identify our emotions, we're generally able to regulate and manage them in healthier ways. Okay, so if you like any of these self-check strategies, we encourage you to give them a try. You don't need to do all 4 of them. You can even choose just one to try and incorporate into your daily routine, and that can have a really positive effect on your level of self-awareness. Okay, so let's do a quick check-in. Take a moment right now to reflect on this. At this time in your life, what is stressing you the most? Are there any changes or losses that you're grieving? Anytime something changes, we experience a loss, even if it's something good. So if in this pandemic world you are working from home more often now, you might be missing time spent talking and collaborating with coworkers at work. If you are working more in general right now, you're logging more hours at work, you might be sad about having less time to spend with your family. To further your self-awareness, okay, on a scale from 1 to 10, after you've identified what those stresses or those losses are, rate yourself on how well you're coping or taking care of yourself right now. A 0 would be that you're doing nothing actively to cope or care for yourself. And a 10 would be that you are actively implementing strategies, again, to cope with the stresses you're experiencing. This is a really important part of being more self-aware. So hopefully as we continue through the rest of this presentation and we share some great strategies with you, you'll find some ways that you're interested in trying to help you take better care of yourself and in turn grow or thrive in this pandemic world we're living in.
All right, so next we're going to talk about the fight or flight system. The fight or flight system is technically known as the sympathetic nervous system and sometimes known as the stress response. Whenever we're faced with threat or danger, our body goes through this biochemical reaction that releases chemicals like adrenaline and cortisol into our bloodstream, and it creates all these physiological changes from top to bottom. So your pupils will dilate, your immunity and digestion shuts down, your breath becomes quick and shallow, your muscles tense, your heart pounds, your critical thinking shuts down. So you're moving out of those higher complex reasoning, emotional awareness parts of your brain and more into that fight or flight survival type brain. Your brain is focused on sensory information. So like I said, your pupils dilate, you're acutely aware of the movement, of the sound, right? Because you're assessing your environment for danger. And this is a very reactive versus responsive strategy that your body goes through. And it's very autonomic. You can't necessarily trigger your fight or flight response purposefully, and you can't shut it off right away. But that you can do some things to train it so it doesn't overreact to a stressful stimuli. So often we are familiar with that stress response when we've gone through a near miss car accident, right? And the car in front of you slams on the brakes and you slam on your brakes and you kind of skid forward and you stop centimeters away from that bumper. And you're like, oh my gosh, that was really close. Your body gets shaky. I don't know how you feel, but I feel like I have butterflies in my stomach and jelly legs. And it's just kind of this, sensory perception all over my body. I can feel it. But most people don't realize that their fight or flight system is activated several times throughout every single day. Anytime you're faced with stress, your fight or flight might kick in just a little bit. So think for a second, when's the last time you felt your sympathetic nervous system or your fight or flight system at work? You probably remember some of those more major events, but even, if your boss sent you an email and said, I need to talk to you, or your dog's barking in the background as you're trying to do a recording, right? All of these things would activate our fight or flight system. So when that happens, even on a small scale, are you aware of that system responding? So it's a great, great system. It keeps us alive and helps us to survive difficult and dangerous situations. But unfortunately, sometimes, like I said, it can overreact. It can react to too many things that aren't really dangerous. And when we're under chronic stress, we know that our wellness deteriorates. Our blood pressure goes up. Our, like I said, our immune system is suppressed. So that means that over time, we're going to have more illnesses. It's also very acidic, these cortisol and adrenaline. So when your body is flooded with all these acidic chemicals, it's going to cause inflammation and pain. They're also very activating. So if your fight or flight system is activated before bed, you might have a hard time falling asleep, or just the chronic stress and activation will cause sleep restlessness or difficulty falling asleep because your mind is just racing and you can't slow it down. Gastrointestinal problems, your digestion slows down. So you might feel like you're not hungry, or you're not digesting food the way that you're supposed to. You have difficulty concentrating. Remember, it clicks off your higher reasoning, complex functioning parts of your brain into that survival instinct. So when people are trying to give you information or you have to concentrate, you might find that it's really hard to focus or that you can't retain that information. Also, that high agitation, ready for fight or flight survival, often is described as anxiety. And when that happens a lot, people are like, I'm in a constant state of anxiety. And then the flip side of that is your parasympathetic nervous system, which brings you back down into rest and digest. And so when these systems become overwhelmed, that fight or flight becomes anxiety, the rest digest becomes depression, and you get this waffling anxiety, depression, mood instability going on. And eventually it leads to fatigue, exhaustion, and burnout. We know that chronic stress is a killer, and these are some of the reasons why. So one way that you can de-escalate your fight or flight system and teach it not to overreact is to, first of all, be aware of when it's happening, how it's affecting you, and just be paying attention to that whole process at work. So we're going to start with a quick body scan exercise to help you bring some awareness to your body. This is a wonderful exercise to do any time of the day or night. And if you really want to dedicate some time to learn this skill and get really good at it, you can go on YouTube and, do this for 15 minutes or a half hour at a time. We're just going to do a really quick 30-second one that you can do, while you're in the middle of your workday if you need to. So everybody get comfortable in your chair. Just kind of settle in, relax your shoulders, take a deep breath. Now, starting at the top of your head, notice places of tension in your head, jaw, neck, and shoulders. Now move your attention down your arms, down your torso, down your back. Now shift your attention to your seat, your hips, legs, knees, calves, and ankles. Now focus on your feet. Push them hard into the ground and notice the tension it creates in your legs and in your seat and all the way up your body. And just keep pushing and then release and notice the relief that you feel. Now go back and notice areas in your body that feel strong and well. When experiencing pain or stress, bring your attention to these areas. Now, that's actually an evidence-based strategy. We know that when we focus, whatever we focus on grows. So if you sprained your ankle and that thing hurts so bad and you just can't stop thinking about this ankle, it's going to hurt more and more. But if you can shift your attention to the ankle that doesn't hurt and focus on that strength and that vitality in that other ankle, you're going to realize that your pain kind of dissipates. Now, it's hard to maintain focus on what's well because your brain wants to keep going to the thing that's not well. But again, it takes skill. It takes mindfulness practice and skills and focus. And you can get better with these things if you dedicate yourself to practicing them and improving your skills. And it's going to help you reduce your tension and stress and de-escalate that fight or flight system.
Excellent. So as Leah had mentioned before, a really great way to offset that sympathetic nervous system is to activate our parasympathetic nervous system. This helps get us to a more calm place where we can better regulate our mind and our body. So the first and most simple way you can do this is to breathe, right? Breathing is free. You can do it anywhere. When we're stressed with that fight or flight, our breathing, it becomes quick and shallow. So if we are very intentional about our breathing, if we breathe slowly and focus on that, that can activate our parasympathetic nervous system. So here's how you do it. You'll breathe in slowly, let's say to the count of 5, and then hold that breath for the count of 5, and then exhale. And you'll repeat that pattern several times, breathing in slowly, holding it, and exhaling. It doesn't matter how long you hold that breath for, how long you breathe. If you breathe to a count of 4, 5, or 8, do what feels comfortable for you. But then as you are breathing, imagine that you have a balloon in your belly, okay, maybe down behind your belly button. And as you're breathing in, that balloon is expanding in your belly. And as you exhale, the balloon is emptying. So continuing to breathe like that, visualizing that balloon filling and emptying, applies pressure in your torso, which in turn applies pressure on your vagus nerve, which activates your parasympathetic nervous system. Again, helping us calm down and get to that place where we're able to better regulate ourselves, our emotions. Breathing is great because you can do it anytime. You can do it anywhere. You don't need to leave a situation to breathe. So you can do deep breathing in a meeting. You can do deep breathing around your family, around friends, at the grocery store. You can do that deep breathing exercise. Some people find deep breathing techniques more effective in the moment when that fight or flight is activated if they practice them at times of normal stress, so they can work out some of the bugs so they know what feels comfortable in terms of how long to hold their breath and how long to breathe in or exhale. But this is a really effective strategy of activating that parasympathetic nervous system. Our next strategy is called open shoulders. And when we're stressed, we have a lot of tension. We get headaches, body tension, our muscles get tight. Physically, it hurts to be stressed. Our normal response in these times when our stress response is activated is to raise our shoulders and kind of crouch in over our core. Again, part of our fight or flight response, we're trying to protect our internal organs. Instead, what we need to do is the exact opposite. We need to be mindful of the fact that we're starting to crouch forward and try dropping our shoulders down and pushing them back to open our chest wide. Doing belly breathing at the same time that we're practicing this open shoulders strategy will cue our body to activate our parasympathetic nervous system. This might feel uncomfortable at first as you are working to, you're kind of working against that fight or flight response because your body is wanting to, your fight or flight response is wanting to crouch over. And you're going to be working against that. So it might feel a little awkward at first. But with time and with practice, you can learn to overcome that discomfort and then learn to activate that parasympathetic nervous system a little more quickly. So that takes practice, but very effective. Another strategy is to change focus. And this one is really interesting. The 12 muscles around your eye also communicate with our vagus nerve. So for this activity, you want to focus on something close to your face and slowly pull it away. Okay, so in this example, I'll use my finger, but you could use a pen or something else that's sitting in the area near you. And you'll put that finger, in this case, close to your face and slowly pull it away. And you'll keep focusing on that. And then slowly, you are going to move that from side to side. Stay focused on that movement and consider how you're feeling as you're doing this, okay? There's a whole trauma therapy focused around this called EMDR. It stands for Eye Movement Desensitization processing. It's all about processing trauma while doing different eye movements. So there's some science behind this strategy and how it works. So this might not be one that you're comfortable doing in front of other people, like breathing. This might be one where you want to maybe find a private spot to do that, whether you're in your office or maybe you go to your bedroom away from your family members. But this is something that you can give a try and see if it works for you. It could be something that helps you relax. And this next activity is called the safe container. And this one's interesting. Leah had talked earlier about disciplining our mind and our thoughts, and that's what the safe container activity is all about. This is about, this is a great strategy when you find that your thoughts that are running through your head are really starting to overwhelm you. So if you're constantly preoccupied with something like worries about local COVID numbers or finances and how you're going to pay the bills this month, or any other distressing or worrisome thought, something that's just stirring in your head and you can't get those thoughts out, this safe container strategy could work for you. Okay, so what you'll do is you'll visualize some kind of safe container. It could look like the one on the screen. It could look like a box. It could look like a lockbox. And what you're going to do is you're going to imagine putting those worrisome or distressing thoughts into the box that's in your mind. Okay. So you might, once you get those thoughts in the box, you might want to lock the box or chain it shut in some way or put something heavy on the top, visualize something heavy going up there so those thoughts stay in the box. Now, over time, it will be natural for those thoughts to pop out of the box and kind of start wandering around in your head again. So again, just stop yourself and visualize them going back in the box. And you might need to do that a few times. That's part of learning this activity. You're going to be in the process training your mind to kind of compartmentalize those thoughts. Putting them in the box doesn't mean you won't address them. It means you're putting them there in a safe spot, and you will be able to come back to them when you have the time and the space to address them. Okay, so this is one that takes a lot of practice, but can be a really effective strategy. And the serenity prayer on your screen. Some people use mantras, prayer, quotes, or other thoughts to coach them through difficult situations. The serenity prayer is a commonly used one. Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. That's a great one. Other people might say something like, I did my best today, and that's enough. These mantras or affirmations are really powerful ways to help guide us through challenging situations. If someone's trying to eat healthier, they might repeat something like, I feel good when my body is healthy and strong, to help them keep on track with making good food choices. Or if someone's trying to create better boundaries at work, a statement like, I am worthy of maintaining boundaries that suit me, can be incredibly powerful in those moments. The use of mantra, prayer, and affirmations are a great strategy to help keep us on track.
All right, the next section we're going to talk about is personality differences. You've probably heard the idea of right brain versus left brain before, and I know there's some scientific controversy about whether it's actually true or not. I'm not really interested in all of that science. I'm really more interested in the personality dynamics that the right brain, left brain captures, because those are true and they have been documented in research and evidence. So thinking about that from the right brain, left brain perspective, what does that mean? So everybody's on a continuum, and it's not like if you're a left brain thinker that you don't use the right side of your brain. Of course we do. We use all our brain all the time, but we tend to be more of either a logical person or an emotional person. We tend to lean towards one side or the other. So if you're a really logical person, you probably like math and numbers and lists and sequences and order and analytical thinking. But if you're very, very strong in that type of mindset, you might become kind of rigid or controlling about your situation, difficulty with change and flexibility. On the other hand, if you're more of an emotional person, you probably like things that are beautiful, things that are fun. You don't necessarily need to read the directions. You can kind of figure it out as you go, more spontaneous in the moment. But if you're extreme in that emotion-based personality, your life probably shifts rapidly because emotions are not really stable. You can be happy and then sad and then overwhelmed, and life can be kind of chaotic and confusing. Now, like I said, we tend to lean towards one side or the other. There are a population of people that are right smack in the middle of the spectrum. They have a foot on both sides, and they're just as much logical as they are emotional. I personally tend to lean towards the emotional side. Of course, I married somebody who's definitely more on the logical side. And there are a few people, a very small minority of people who are on the extreme end, and typically those people have personality disorders because they're very extreme. We're not diagnosing anybody here today, but I just want to make the point that, you know, just because you tend to be more logical doesn't mean you're always logical all the time. We can be both. It's just that we have a tendency towards one or the other usually. So this is spinning ballerina, and she's going to be spinning in a direction. So take a look and see which way she's going for you. If she's spinning clockwise, you're probably using the right side of your brain or the emotional part of your brain. So try to get her to switch by doing something logical. That might be giving yourself directions on how to get from wherever you are to Walmart. It might be doing math problems. The more complex, the better. The more, if you do them out loud, that's even better because then you're using your language centers. If she's already spinning counterclockwise, you're already thinking with your logical or left brain. So try to do something emotional to get her to switch. So think of your favorite poem or your favorite piece of art or your first kiss, something that's highly emotional for you, and see if you can get her to switch. All right, so if you want to practice this further at home, just go to YouTube, type in spinning ballerina. She'll pop right up. There's several videos of this, but make sure you type in spinning ballerina and not dancing girl, because that's a different thing completely. So if you are more of that logical left brain thinker, you'll notice that this list here is in perfect alignment. It's alphabetical. You're probably linear, logical, organized, precise. Those are words that you probably like to hear. You probably focus on facts over feelings or your explicit memory. So for example, when I asked my husband what he had for dinner last night, he would tell me that we had steak tips and that they were cooked medium rare, and the potato was mashed but a little bit lumpy, and the broccoli was roasted in the oven and seasoned with salt and pepper. And overall, it was a good meal. But like I said, the potatoes were a little bit lumpy and bland, right? So he can tell me exactly the details of it, and then he's going to tell me what's wrong with it. Logical people tend to be, they look for flaws because that's how they help. He's helping me see how my potatoes weren't that great so that next time I can work out the bugs and be a little bit better. So that's their motivation for that. But sometimes it's like, I can never do anything right, especially if you're emotional and sensitive like I am. But that is how my husband would explain what we had for dinner last night. Thinkers under stress, they typically are not feelings-based people. Not that they don't have feelings, of course they do, but they're not necessarily focused on them. So sometimes when we talk about tell me how you feel, sometimes thinkers have a hard time coming up with the words for how they feel. They're not used to talking about that. They're not used to exploring that. Sometimes they become emotionally numb or try to fix their problems with logic. These are the people who come to counseling with a pen and a paper, and they're ready to take notes so I can give them the checklist of things that they need to do to feel better. They say things like, I'm too busy to be sad. I don't have time for this. Just tell me what I need to do. So sometimes they avoid feelings and conversations about feelings. They just tell me what I need to do to fix this. I don't necessarily want to talk about how I feel. Does that sound like you? So here's the trick. It's not necessarily healthy to be stuck on one side of the spectrum or the other. So try to create that balance by engaging your emotions and leveraging them to help you. So with thinkers, the challenge is to connect with their emotions by expanding that emotional vocabulary. Erin talked about that earlier in the presentation. Go beyond mad, sad, glad, scared, frustrated, overwhelmed, confused, startled. There are tons of words to describe how you feel. Get comfortable using them. Do some creative art. Do, whether it's woodworking or scrapbooking or painting or photography, whatever it is, do something that helps you to express what's going on internally. Write poetry or think of things in metaphors. That's a great way to expand your right brain creative process. Pretend or imagine. Play with kids. They're amazing at this. Try to follow their lead. A lot of times adults find that really uncomfortable because they're not used to thinking in imaginative ways anymore, right? Like the serious, we have to do business. But try to do that. Or just imagine like you won the lottery and you have infinite amount of money. You can do anything in life. What would you do? Imagine the possibilities. Write a narrative of your story where you're the main character. What's the plot? What's the obstacles? How is the character going to thrive in the end? What's the happy ending? Or deepen your spiritual beliefs. Ask yourself the questions, what is the purpose of life and why am I here? And if you really dig into some of these things, you're going to find that some of that hard exterior, like I don't have time to be sad. Yes, it's more vulnerable. It's kind of sometimes difficult to deal with emotions, but they're going to have less power over you if you attack them head on and process through them, heal from them, and then you can just kind of move on rather than get stuck in, I can't handle it, it's so overwhelming. Feelers, on the other hand, you could notice that their list is not linear and organized. It's all over the place. It's all different. They tend to be creative, optimistic, spontaneous, and visionary. They focus on the feelings over the facts or the implicit memory. So when somebody asked me what we had for dinner last night, I would say, oh, we had these amazing steak tips and they were cooked just perfectly, medium rare, just how I like it. And the mashed potatoes, they were a little bit lumpy, but I didn't mind that at all because I put lots of butter and salt on there and just how I like it. The broccoli, it had that nice crisp because it was roasted in the oven, that kind of like a little bit charred flavor. I don't know how to describe it, but it's just so, broccoli is cooked best when it's roasted in the oven. And the meal was really great. Okay, so that's how I would describe the meal. And I was dramatizing a little bit for the effect, but that is more typical of how I would describe it. Much more emotion, much more animation compared to my husband. The steak was 10 ounces. And I'm like, oh, who cares how big it was? It was amazing, right? So feelers under stress, they go on that emotional roller coaster because, like I said, feelings aren't stable. I'm happy, I'm sad, I'm confused. I don't know how I feel, right? And it's hard when you're under stress to really get a grip. Intense feelings shift rapidly, there's confusion, and the person might feel out of control. And when they start to go down that slippery slope, a lot of times the feelers will abandon the structures and the routines that they know are helpful to them, but it's like, everything sucks. Why should I even try? I'm not even going to do my list today, which makes things even more out of control. And the challenge to the emotional people is to focus more on logic to create some of that balance, that structure, that routine. Things like math or logic puzzles, riddles, Sudoku, chess, those analytical thinking games and activities will help you to take a break from that emotional roller coaster and do something which is more, I don't know how to say, like stable, right? So when you're focusing on your math problem, it's not like shifting rapidly, you're really focused. Making lists, cleaning and organizing your space. A lot of people do this naturally. They know that when I'm stressed out, I just go home and I clean everything. And that's the reset button for me. So that is you naturally engaging that left brain, trying to create some order out of the chaos. Creating a timeline helps to put things in sequence and give it an order so it's not all jumbled up and confusing. Or make a plan detailing each step. Like, I'm really stressed. Here's what I need to do to get better. First of all, I need to eat a healthy breakfast so that I have enough fuel in my tank. At lunchtime, I'm going to take a walk outside, get some exercise, enjoy the sunshine. And after work, I'm going to take some me time and just de-stress, right? And so when you make a plan, much more structured and ordered and not feeling so out of control. But of course, like I said, we use both sides of our brain all the time. So anytime you can incorporate activities that use both sides of your brain are going to be really helpful in balancing. So bilateral movement could be cross-country skiing, biking, dancing, anything that uses both sides of your body uses both sides of your brain. Art, so you have the creative expression of your sculpture, your painting, but then you also have the technical components of how you mix color or how you create your medium. Music is the same thing. You can have the dynamics and the tempo that give it that emotional expression, but you also have the key signature and the time signature, which is that structure. Talking and writing, there's some value in just kind of thinking through your situation, but a lot of people find that just thinking about it keeps it still jumbled up and confused in their head. They can't make sense of it. When they talk it out, you're actually activating the language centers of your brain, which helps to create some order and structure to those thoughts. And when you write it, same thing, you're activating other parts of your logical part of your brain to create some order and structure in the words that you're making. So a lot of people find that talk therapy is very helpful, or even just talking to a friend. And even more so, writing it down is really helpful in kind of neutralizing and balancing some of those distressing emotions. Coloring mandalas, I know adult coloring has become very popular in recent years, and there's been some research to show that when people engage in some of that complex adult coloring, that it helps to put them in a meditative state and can significantly reduce anxiety. So get out the colored pencils and the crayons and sit around the table with your kids and reduce some stress. And finally, meditation and mindfulness, again, it really captures the skill of focus, that you don't have to worry about how you're going to pay the bill or what your boss meant by that comment in the meeting or how this is going to happen or what happened yesterday, right? All those stressful thoughts, but to just focus it on what's happening right now. And that might be your breath. It might be what you can see, what you can hear, what you can smell. It might be just coloring your picture and tuning out the rest of the world, whatever it is. But mindfulness and meditation is about giving yourself some focused space to just relax and de-stress.
Excellent. Staying grounded. So when life is chaotic and you're being pulled in so many directions, how do you rein everything in and slow down? It's important to remember that time waits for no one, okay? If you don't take time, it will take you. So if you're having a hard time fitting everything in that you want or need to do, it might be a good time to really try and find a way to take some time back for yourself. Prioritize tasks and projects and really look at what you can truly accomplish and give yourself some grace on the things that you're unable to do, okay? Be grateful. There are so many blessings around us, even in the middle of a pandemic. There are so many small things we wouldn't even normally give a thought to that are blessings, that are good things that are happening. Having an attitude of gratitude has so many wonderful physical and mental health benefits. Research shows that living a life of gratitude and recognizing the good things that are happening around you can truly increase feelings of happiness. This is a simple yet powerful strategy to recognize the good things happening around you. Next, it's important to evaluate your priorities and then live your life in a way that aligns with those priorities. Why did you enter your field of work? What is most important to you in life? When we're not focused, it's really easy to get off track. So make sure that you're creating space for the things that are important to you. If you don't, life is so busy, you'll be pulled in a million directions. And before you know it, you'll be pulled away from spending time doing the things that you value. So holding time aside in your schedule is really important, whether that means you carve out a little bit of time in the evening, or you find time on the weekend, or maybe you take a day off work for those activities that you enjoy. Really figure out what those priorities are, whether it's friends, family, exercise, going to church, spending time in nature, practicing a hobby. Carving out that time and making that a priority will help you live in alignment with the things that are most important to you. And Leah referenced this earlier at the start of our presentation, that post-traumatic growth, and how although we would never want a tragedy or a trauma to affect anyone, there are good things that come from those experiences. When people reflect on traumatic events, they report growth in 5 different areas, and those are listed on the screen. The first is improvement in relationships. So after a trauma, people have kind of a new kind of focus, and they don't want to take those relationships in their lives for granted, their family or their friends. So they notice improvement in those. They experience a greater appreciation for life. They don't want to waste opportunities. They really want to live every day to its fullest. They also report new opportunities or pathways in life. After a trauma, for many people, doors open that previously weren't there. They also share experiencing a greater sense of personal strength and spiritual changes or development of a spiritual sense that they didn't have previously. So when you think about life right now, living through a pandemic has been challenging in so many different ways. But how are you learning, and how have you grown in the last year? What silver linings have you experienced in that time? Again, we've mentioned this a few times, but focusing on the positive aspects versus the challenges is where we'll see that growth. Okay. And I think that we've covered a lot of information today. We share a lot of strategies and a lot of different ideas and concepts. So this is a really great time to just stop and think about, what is one thing that you will commit to doing for yourself today?
So in summary, we learned about the fight or flight system and strategies to stay regulated, things like body scan, deep breathing, open shoulders, safe containers, serenity prayer, mantras. This is just the tip of the iceberg. There's a lot of things you can do. Consider the importance of self-awareness and discuss practices to enhance this skill. So specifically that body scan, or just recognizing when your fight or flight system is activated and going, oh, there it was, I can feel the change. Explore your unique tendencies and traits and leverage these to help yourself manage stress. So if you're more of that thinker person, that you might need to lean a little bit more into being a little bit more emotionally expressive, expanding your emotional vocabulary. If you already have emotions all over the place, to lean into being a little bit more structured and organizing, creating lists and things to keep you on track. Contemplate the silver linings that come with adversity and discuss your unique purpose. There's always purpose for your pain, and it's up to you to decide to use that for the greater good or not. So reflecting on, how has this changed you? How have you become more resilient? What have you learned through this? And how can you use that experience to help someone else? So that's it. In summary, we want to thank you so much for joining with us during this session. Please contact us, email us, give us a call if you have any questions, or if there's anything we can do for you. We are happy to help, and we're just very grateful to be here today. So thank you.